So, I'm here with him,
Hello.
and we're about to review what is often considered the worst Indiana Jones film. But, what do we think? Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was released in 2008, and it's once again directed by the one and only Steven Spielberg. And basically, the film once again follows Indiana Jones on a new adventure, as this time he is in search for Oxley and the Crystal Skull, and Mutt goes on the adventure with him, and he wants some old friends along the way, whilst facing off against the Russians. And that's basically my version of the plot for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So, here's what I think about the movie, and then we'll get on to him. I like it. I think it's entertaining, but it's nowhere near as good as it should be.
No,
I
agree.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it's watchable. We literally just finished watching it like 5 minutes ago.
It now.
And it's watchable. And by the way, we're sweating buckets because it's the hottest day of the year right now.
Yeah.
I had to do this review, but it's watchable. It's got some good elements in there. It's fun to watch, and it's got some great action sequences, and it's not bad in our opinions. I don't think. I think we agree there. But it's one of those movies where after you've watched it and you think more about it, you notice more problems with it. Do you want to chip in there?
Yeah, well, I've got quite a few things to say about this film. It's a shame. I'm such a big... I absolutely love the Indiana Jones franchise. I love everything about the first three films. I also really like this film. I think Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a good film, but I think it has a lot of flaws, which is a real shame due to how much I love Indiana Jones. I feel like it's one of those films that that I want to defend because I love Indiana Jones, but I find it difficult to defend it. If somebody said something bad about it, I'd struggle to say, oh, actually, no, I think you're wrong about that. Because, to be honest, they're probably right. I think it's a good film, but I don't think it's a great film. I think it's just got some great scenes in it.
But yeah, I kind of agree with what he's saying. Like, I do think the film's got some really good moments. Like, the ant sequence in the film is brilliant. And I think
I love the car. I like the iconic car chase when he accidentally crashed into the Marcus Brody statue. Although it's a bit disrespectful to Marcus Brody. I like how...
And Dan O'Malley as well, who sadly passed away before the film came out.
That's true.
But at the same time, though, that scene works in the film. The opening isn't bad.
And I like it in his reaction to the statue. You know, he just keeps a serious face, and he's, you know...
Yeah, but and also from the warehouse at the start of the movie as well. Again, it's not bad. It's entertaining to watch. And also the jungle chase is, you know, a bit of fun to watch. It also looks a bit fake. We were watching it together, and the funny thing was, I kept going, that's clearly CGI, and things like that, and it's a bit fake, but at the same time, though, I find it entertaining still, and I think that the snake pit sequence as well, where, you know, Indy and Marion are going into the sand pit, and then, you know, Mutt throws Indy the snake, and Indy's like, just call it a rope, call it a rope. It's a fun sequence, and I enjoy watching it, but the problem is...
There's not enough of them.
Yeah, you don't get enough action sequence in the film. You get the opening, kind of, there's a bit of an action sequence there, then you get the car chase through the city where the film's taking place, and then also you have this like large gap in the movie where it's just basically talking and characters talking about the skull and Indy being questions about the skull, and then you meet Ox again, you meet Marion, and all that stuff isn't bad, but there's anything to it. It's not riveting to watch.
Yeah. Also, I've got to comment on it. I've got to comment on Ray Winstone. When I saw the film as a kid, I never really thought about this before because I wasn't as critical when I was younger compared to now. I feel like Ray Winstone was so pointless in this film. The character Mac is just, you know, he's literally just there. You know, he's not like Salah when he's giving Indy information about what the Nazis are doing, or he's helping him out like he did in The Last Crusade. It's just, yeah, there's a few characters in the film that shouldn't really be there. There's nothing wrong with the music. You can't fault the John Williams score. That's not.
Yeah, John Williams doesn't write a bad score. Like, I love the theme for the Russians in the film, you know, bum 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 ba-da-dum ba-da-dum ba, and the theme for this score, you know, ba-da-dum. It's still good music, and it's still entices you in, like it did with Raiders, like it did with Temple of Doom, like it did with Last Crusade. But it's not his best score by a long shot.
No, it's not.
It's not even like, it's not even the usual John Williams standard. Like, I still love the score, and I've still listened to it like 1,000 times. But the problem is, it's not quite as exciting to listen to, unlike a score for like the previous 3 films. And also, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, and we're jumping around a bit, but we're just kind of doing this off the top of our heads because, you know, I had him around, so I wanted to review. But still, nevertheless, you know, one thing I haven't mentioned is this was the first movie I remember watching at cinema. I may have watched the film beforehand, but this was the very first movie I remember watching at cinema. I remember going to the cinema with my father and with my brothers, and we were also excited to see a new Indiana Jones movie. I was such a huge fan of Temple of Doom and Last Crusade as a kid, and I remember going to see it at the cinema and absolutely loving it. I was sat in the front row. I remember thinking, why the hell am I sat in the front row at the cinema? But I enjoyed the hell out of it. But I think that's kind of the reason I like it, though, to a certain degree, because it's nostalgic. I think all the Indiana Jones movies, especially Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, and this film, are nostalgic for me to a certain degree because I watched them so many times as a kid. But now, especially with this film, I notice more problems with it.
It's a film that when you watch it as a kid, you still really enjoy, but when you watch it as an adult, you realise how many flaws are actually in it. But whenever I watch the original 3 Indiana Jones movies, I feel exactly the same as I did as a kid. Nothing wrong with them, because there isn't. But it's a different case with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Getting this towel to wipe this sweat off my forehead. But yeah,
Also, I just want to mention, I think Indiana Jones 4 is a good movie, but it's not a good Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I was watching it, well, when rewatching it, should I say, and it almost felt like it was Spielberg trying to make an Indiana Jones film. It didn't feel like he was actually making an Indiana Jones movie. Like, you feel with the original 3 that he has this grasp on what he's doing, and he's creating these fantastic moments, these iconic moments, like the Harum Shava and the hat taken out in Temple of Doom, in Raiders when the Ark of the Covenant is open, the face melt sequence.
In Last Crusade, you got the Holy Grail.
Most of Last Crusade is just so iconic in my opinion.
Pretty much the entire film.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get onto Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it feels like he forgot how to make an Indiana Jones film.
Yeah.
It just feels like so much of the film is fake. I was pointing this out. So much of the sun is just in focus in such a weird way in the film. It's like you're watching it going, why does this look fake? I don't understand that about it.
It's not that large of a gap. 20 years.
It's a large gap in filmmaking.
But it's not like Spielberg shouldn't have forgotten in 20 years how to make an Indiana Jones movie.
And like I read online about a couple of days ago now that apparently he didn't really want to make the film. It was George Lucas and Harrison Ford who kind of convinced him, which is fine, but I do feel like it's Spielberg not at his best. Like, I feel when Spielberg's directing Raiders, he's at the height of his directing power. It's terrific direction. But in this movie, it feels very much like his direction is kind of lackluster. Like, it's not as good as it should be. And, you know, there's overdubbing in this film, which was very obvious to me. And the action sequences didn't leap off the screen in the best way. You even noticed a continuity error at one point.
Yeah.
And there's like this, it's Spielberg, you were talking about Steven Spielberg here, who, you know, was recently nominated for Best Acting Oscar for West Side Story Remake, which he did a fantastic job with. But it's not as well directed as it should be. On paper, we spoke about this. You have Harrison Ford back. You have George Lucas involved in the story. You have Spielberg directing. You have John Williams scoring the movie. You have Karen Allen back as Marion.
On paper, it's a brilliant film, but when you actually watch it, the problem with the film is it was nowhere near the height of expectations.
And like Spielberg has come out and said that he was happy with the film, but he was never happy with MacGuffin. He was never happy with the idea of the Crystal Skull. But George Lucas was very adamant that stayed in the movie, the whole idea of the Crystal Skull. And so Spielberg just said he went along with it because in the end, George Lucas would always come up with the story of these Indiana Jones movies. And to be honest, I kind of think it's the best that he's not done it for the fifth movie. And I think that you can kind of tell that in Spielberg's direction, that his heart isn't really in there in the movie. Like, even so, he's talked now about how much he didn't like doing Temple of Doom. You can tell it's still a Spielberg film, though, and it's still really well directed and really well made. I can't say the same about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I'll tell you something. Obviously, I'm not a film director, but if I was, I think what a nice idea would have been something that might have actually saved the film, rather than doing a completely new idea, as in the Crystal Skull. they could have done a follow-on from either the Ark. They could have done like a Raiders follow-on, or something like that, something to do with the Ark. You couldn't do the Nazis because the war had ended. You could do Nazi war criminals, which is what they're doing in Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah, we know they're bringing Nazis back. They've been set for.
This is what they should have done. They should have done what they're doing with Indiana Jones 5 in 4, but they didn't, and now it's too late.
Yeah, so I mean,
late.
let's talk about some of our big problems with which we noticed. So we just had a little drink break, but let's talk about some of the things we didn't really like about the film. We touched on this already, but you know, it's one of those films where the more you think about it, the more problems you start to have with it. And like, it's entertaining to watch on the surface, but the more problems, you just notice more problems with it as you think about it. And I think that's kind of exemplified in the character of Oxley, because that should have been Salah. That should have been Salah. And I think John Rhys Davies was like asked to return for the sequel, and he said no.
I don't know why he said no.
Because it sounds like he might be returning for Indiana Jones 5, though. He's very open to it, and I hope he does, because it'll make it a bit more cohesive.
It would make up for Indiana Jones.
Yeah, round that character arc off, and also kind of makes sense, Salah in 1, 3 and 5 is in all the odd-numbered Indiana Jones films, but still, nevertheless, that should have been Salah, because you've got all this stuff with Oxley in the film, where apparently he's known Indy and Marion for such a long time, although we've got no hints of that in Raiders, we have no hints of that in Last Crusade, we have no hints of that in the Young Indy series as well, from what I can remember. And by the way, I'll probably talk about the Young Indy series sometime on this channel in the near distant future, but still, nevertheless, you get the point I'm making. You watch all that stuff with Oxley, kind of like, why haven't we heard this character before? Like, John Hurt plays him wonderfully. I think John Hurt's a great actor, and I think he did the best job with the script he got in this film, but I just don't understand why I've never heard of that character before. And also, when you learn that Henry Jones has died, when you learn that Indy's father's died, it always just confuses me, because I pointed out to Lewis when we were watching the film, I said, but didn't he drink the cup of Christ? Didn't he drink the Holy Grail in Last Crusade, which gives him endless life? Because it's meant to give him endless life when you watch Last Crusade. That was the point. And then when you
the point is, I think you I might be wrong here, but I've got one point that might defend that might defend.
Go ahead.
Right. Well, in the Last Crusade, we only saw Indy's dad drink out the cup once, and then the cup was lost. But you hear Donovan say, "I want the cup for myself." So I wonder if you have to drink out the cup every day.
I mean, that might be it, but they don't fully explain that, though.
But it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, but I feel if the film doesn't explain that element, then it's not doing its job correctly. But still, that could be a possibility. I'm not saying...
It is a point.
It's a point, but I heard a story somewhere, and by the way, bikes outside, I heard a story somewhere that apparently Sean Connery was asked to return for this movie, and he said no, so they just kind of wrote him out of it, which is a bit funny when you think about it, because he was still alive when he did this film. Obviously, sadly, he's passed away now, which is unfortunate. And let's talk about the whole atomic bomb sequence as well. That's not a bad sequence in my opinion, but me and him disagree on one part, which is where Indy gets in the fridge to get away from the atomic bomb, and then you see him like tumble all the way out of it after the explosion, and he's just fine still. He looks a bit, gnarly. He looks like he's just gone through hell, but there's no bruise on him, there's no cuts on. He's just, I don't understand that, how he gets in his fridge and manages to get away from this nuclear explosion, and he's not hurt whatsoever.
The thing I say was, he was jam-packed tight in that fridge, like he couldn't move. It's not like he was like flying around in this room.
I mean, that could be a possibility. We disagree on that. Personally, that still bothers me. But I like that nuclear sequence. I think it's fun to watch.
I do.
But one thing as well...
It's the only atomic bomb that I've seen in a movie that I've watched.
It's not the only one I've seen.
I'm sure there's others, but it was done pretty well in this film.
But also, another thing we noticed when we were watching it as well, was like the opening, where you see Indy in the warehouse. It's a fun sequence. I love how Indy's reintroduced as well. You have that one shot, his hat's falling on the floor, and he picks his hat up. It's fantastic. It's really well done. You get the John Williams score in the background. Da-da-da-ba, bum, ba-dum. It's great. But then, after that warehouse sequence, to go onto this like weird sort of train thing, that like propelling them 1,000,000 miles per hour. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it doesn't make any sense when you think about it. And also, like, the amount of CGI in this film. Like, Spielberg's always talking about how he wants to shoot on location movies. He likes big sets. And you do get quite a lot of set pieces, particularly towards the end of the film, when you see, the villain of the film, and we see Indy put the skull on the head of that alien sort of skull. And it's not bad, but, like... there's way too much CGI in this film, in my opinion. There's way too much visual effects, which are just so noticeable. It just looks fake. Like, I know this film was made 20 years or so after, Last Crusade, but at the same time, though, India's directed other Spielberg's directed other movies since, like Ready Player One, which actually looks more real than this film does. And Ready Player One is, set in a virtual world. Or you look at something like I said before, West Side Story. That looks more real. The Post looks more real.
I feel like
Which is spies.
I feel like all the people associated with this film. I feel like in 2007 when this film was being filmed, because it got released in 2008, but it would have been filmed before then.
Maybe 2006.
Yeah, okay, 2006 to 2007. I don't know what happened. It's as if like everyone, including Spielberg, just lost their mind, basically.
Like who thought that the school was a good idea, and who thought that Mutt being Tarzan was a great idea as well when he seems swinging the monkeys in the jungle sequence. That sequence has visual effects. Who sat down and thought that's a great scene? And another person was sat down. That's a good scene. We'll have to maybe get some VFX team in there. Who thought that was a good idea?
I mean, it's a 20-year gap, and it's over 20 years. The writers have changed.
Well, it's going to be a 14-year gap between this one and the new one.
Well, I've got no idea what this one's going to be.
15 years.
I don't know. I've got no idea what this one's going to be.
But this one's going to have a new director, which, as much as I love Spielberg, he's made some of my favourite films of all time, like Last Crusade, and like Raiders, and like Temple of Doom. As much as I love him, it might be good to have new, fresh hands in the director's chair of this franchise. Let's talk about the villain. What do you think of her? I like her.
I like her as well. I think there's nothing wrong with her.
Cate Blanchett, great performance. I love her as an actress. Seeing some of the things, she's great in the Aviator. She's great in Gladwell in Lord of the Rings.
I think it's the same.
She's a great actress, and she's great in this film.
I think it's the same case with John Hurt. She dealt with the lines that she was given with as best she could.
She did the best with the script she got, and I don't think the script she got was that. I don't think she's doing much though. She's not so much an emotional range, which isn't her fault. I just think it's down to the script.
It felt like the film was a bit wasted as well. When you watch The Last Crusade, literally every minute something significant is happening,
and it's exciting. It's emotional.
A lot of time was half of this film. Time was wasted with like pointless dialogue when they could have been doing something.
And also, there's always sunlight in the scenes. There's one scene where you see India Mutt under this cave, and they're finding the skull after all these years, and it's meant to be night outside, or it's meant to be dawn or something like that, but there's light shining through like it's the middle of the day. I was like, what? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why there's so much light in this movie. Like, you watch Temple of Doom and it's so dark. And I understand that Spielberg didn't like Temple of Doom. He looks at it now and he talks about how much he doesn't really like doing that movie. Or he didn't like what he didn't like when he did it. And how he's in a dark place because he's going through a divorce after he did that film. But the thing is, though, like, you watch this movie and it's just so light. None of it feels gritty. I don't know if you notice this, but I'm just thinking about it now. Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones never fires a gun in this film.
I hadn't even thought that.
He never fires a gun in this movie.
Yeah,
that shows you how tame this film is.
That's a brilliant point. I'd never actually thought of that.
I like Harrison Ford as an actor. I think he's great in Indiana Jones, but I think this is his worst performance as Indiana Jones in all the 4 films.
Oh, definitely.
I think his best is Last Crusade, second best Temple of Doom because he's dark in the film. He's great in Raiders as well, but in this movie, it kind of felt like he was.
If I'm being honest, I think you could say the same thing that we said about Colonel Sparkle. That's
a villain, by the way.
Harrison Ford had to put up with the scripts that he got, and also it's not Harrison Ford's choice when he fires the gun.
No, it isn't. No. It's the script. It's the story. It's not Spielberg as well. Spielberg could say in the sequence, "Fire a gun here," something like that. And there's this great. Then there's obviously the great, sequence where they all fire guns when they're in Peru in Raiders in the bar, which is fantastic. But I can't believe they never fire a gun. He never fires a gun in this movie. You see a lot of gunfire, in particular the Russians, but you never see him fire a gun.
No.
Also, I love the introduction to Marion. I love the fact they brought Karen Allen back. I thought that was a great addition. I love how she reintroduced. She goes, Indiana Jones. I never thought I'd see you again. I'm paraphrasing there, something like that. But I love that reintroduction, and I think it's done really well. But again, it just kind of feels like she's there for the sake of being there.
If it was me, I would have taken out Ray Winstone. I would have had Indy.
Yeah, Ray Winston's awful in the film.
Okay, forget about him. Okay.
Ray Winston's not really a good actor.
Let's just pretend that Ray Winstone isn't in the film. I'd have Harrison Ford locked in that car boot on his own. He gets out the car. He gets thrown out in the car on his own. He's in the warehouse on his own.
That would have worked.
I'd have him run away from the Russians on his own without Ray Winstone. Okay, and I'd replace Ray Winstone with Salah, and have.
Or you
I'd
could
have
even
Salah
do
in
a
it,
short
so-
round.
Yeah, I don't know how short round would come into the film.
It would work better than that.
Short round. Okay, short round or Salah could come in and try and
Willie.
save Indy from the Russians. You could have Willie come in maybe at the end to the wedding.
Maybe. It would be a bit weird though, like X's.
But she would have been a friend.
But on the topic of that, the end's perfect. The end of this movie is perfect. You know, it really is seeing Marion and Indy get married. That's a perfect end to that.
And I love the intro as well with Elvis Presley singing Hound Dog.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because
it's the worst of the Indiana Jones intros, but it's still
realistic.
not bad.
1957.
And obviously, we just watched Elvis recently, so we both know that Elvis. We know a bit more about him now. And by the way, if you haven't seen Elvis, best one of the year so far, in my opinion. I think you can agree there. But still, nonetheless, you know, the ending's perfect. And if you place that ending in a different film, like in a different Indiana Jones film, it would be amazing. It really would. And it would be perfect for the end of Indy's character arc. But because it's the end of this movie, it's just kind of like... You know what's so weird about that as well? You know in Indy, I wonder when Marion kisses Indy, and it's this big kiss, she full on goes for it. Mutt looks jealous. Mutt looks jealous.
I never really noticed that before. But...
No, he does. And then, obviously, Mutt's about to pick up the hat, and Spielberg saves the day. It's like, I seen you pick up the hat, you get it instead. Indy gets the hat instead, which saves it, because now we know that Indy 5 is happening, which I'm very excited about. Is there any other things we forgot to talk about? I can't remember. How do you feel about the Russians in this film? The fact they went to Russians.
I thought the Russians were quite wimpy for what they should have been.
Yeah, they're nowhere near as good as the Nazis in Raiders or Last Crusade.
Definitely not.
I'm not good as the cult that you see in Temple of Doom as well. I think that works really good.
Even though the Foggies weren't great at fighting, even though the cult weren't great at fighting, I thought they were better acting than the Russian than the actors that played the Russians.
No, yeah, I think he's correct there. Like, another thing,
Temple of Doom was better acting, that's for sure.
Yeah, like another thing I noticed as well was, I don't know if you noticed this, but I did, because like it's a bit obvious for me sometimes when you're watching these films. There's a lot of times when Harrison Ford isn't doing stunt work in this movie. It looked a lot of times
even though he's old,
which is fine.
Even though he's in his 60s, he's still.
Yeah, which is fine. But like, there's a lot of moments where he didn't like he was doing the stunts. He got a stuntman in to do it instead. Which again,
what, is that obvious?
I could tell. I don't think you.
I don't really. I'm not as analytic.
Perceptive, yes.
I'm not.
But still, nonetheless, it didn't hugely bother me. But I think it just lost something as well. You don't feel the grittiness of the action sequences like you do the truck chase in Raiders, the tank sequence in Last Crusade, or the whole bridge sequence in Temple of Doom.
The thing about those three sequences towards the end of each of those three films, Raiders, Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, all three, they're all about Indy. But in the chase in this film, it was about everyone. If anything, it was mostly about Mutt.
Yeah, because you see him do the sword fight.
Yeah,
and by the way, Mutt's theme by John Williams, you know, it's a great piece of music. It's actually one of the best John Williams ever done, in my opinion, especially in the later years. But that whole sequence revolves around Mutt and showing how good Mutt is as a swordsman. I'm kind of like, great, but I want to see Indy do something. The movie's called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which, by the way, is such a long name. That name should have been telling within itself. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Raiders Lost Ark makes a great name. Temple of Doom, that's mysterious. Kind of like, oh, I want to watch that. Last Crusade, again, great name.
Well, they could have
It's a
called
long name as well. Every time I say it, I'm like, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's like, for God's.
I mean, you could just say Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, but does that sound right?
No, and also
that's too short.
The kingdom thing, where you see, you know, our main character taking the skull back to the kingdom. That kingdom is huge. How has no one noticed that ever? How has no plane flown over that before? It's at a stretch. How has no plane flown over that before?
You could edit that out if you want.
Yeah, I have done. So that makes no sense to you whatsoever. But still, how has no plane flown over that kingdom and gone, oh, look what's down there, you know? And also the 3 times it dropped sequence.
Are you sure about that? How nobody's seen it? I don't remember
nobody has.
How do you know? I don't remember that being
because
said.
the natives have all been there, and no one's, you know.
How do you know no one's seen it? What do you mean?
Well, I think it's implied no one has, because no one's taken the skull there. No one's living there. No one's.
Okay,
yeah, I think it's implied out. That isn't explicitly said, but still, nevertheless. And also, when the waterfall, you know, 3 times it drops, 3 times it drops, things like that, and you see the waterfall, and they go to the waterfall once, and they all seem miraculously fine. They go next waterfall, miraculously fine. Next waterfall, they're all still fine.
Also, I just want to make another.
A lot of them drowned.
I just want to have another dig at Ray Winstone. I'm really roasting Ray Winstone there.
Brilliant.
But
I'll say something about Ray Winstone as well.
Okay, you know the jungle car chase. Well, there's this one scene. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen the film, so I don't need to worry about.
If you
spoiling. If you haven't, then you shouldn't be
it's
watching
fine.
it. Well, you shouldn't really be. You should watch the film before watching the.
Go and watch one of the other ones instead. Go and watch one of them instead.
Okay, I recommend Last Crusade. Wink, wink.
Yeah, same here. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, but there's a scene when Colonel Sparkle, she's trying to basically knock them off the cliff with her jeep, and then
in the jungle chase.
Honestly, he's literally Ray Winstone. He's literally that pointless. He literally turns to the camera. He literally speaks to the actual audience as if they're actually there, and goes, "This is very dangerous."
It's almost like telling us this is dangerous, and we haven't realised. And we're sat there going, "Oh, is it? Oh, thanks, Ray, for telling us."
He might as well look at the camera and say, "Hi, viewers, don't try this yourselves."
Don't try this at home, like they always say, like Blue Peter or something. One of the funniest things, in my opinion, is Mac's kite track. So Mac, played by Ray Winstone, and Ray Winstone doesn't do an awful job, or they doesn't do a good job either. It's just bad.
He's just there.
Yeah, it's just okay. But Mac's kite track is rubbish. There's no kite track. He's against Indy, he betrays Indy, then he's working with Indy, he betrays Indy again, he's working for Indy, he betrays Indy again. It's like, what's the kite track there? I don't understand that. Even in like the last moments of the movie, he betrays Indy, and it's just kind of like, I don't understand that kite track, and why is Mac in this movie?
Yeah, and his final words are, "Don't worry, Indy, I'll be alright."
Brilliant. Just bear with me a second, I'm on the side of the room, no guys can see me. I'm gonna get my indie hat on, because I got this on from all my indie reviews. So, let's talk about the positives though. Let's just say some of the positives off the bat. It's still entertaining. It still feels like a Spielberg film. It's still got a George Lucas touch in there, which, for the good and bad reasons, but for the good reasons, if we want to touch on that. The John Williams score is still good. It still works well in the movie. It's still well made to varying degrees. The alien stuff at the end is a bit silly.
I don't like the ending.
Yeah, like
I like the wedding bit at the end, but that's
like all the Indiana Jones films have been silly to varying degrees, but this one takes it to another level. I think you'll agree there. It takes it to another level. The whole alien things, and I don't know.
I want before the scene at the end of Raiders when the faces melt. You actually believe it because it looks real.
Yeah,
but the ending of the Kingdom of Crystal Skull doesn't
Last
look real.
Crusade is emotionally quite a fantastic ending, where it
looks real.
Indy's father saying to Indy, "Indiana, let go," as he's trying to get the girl. It's a fantastic moment. And they ride up into the sunset. Perfect end to the Indiana Jones trilogy. Then they made a fourth.
It's a shame. I mean.
And I'm happy the movie exists, because now we're going to get a fifth one, which I hope is a lot better.
I still can't get over the fact that there's going to be an Indiana Jones 5. It's just crazy. I can't believe it did.
And this movie is still nostalgic for me. I don't know if you agree, but it's nostalgic. I watched it sometimes as a kid, and it was the first movie I remember seeing at cinema, and I remember really loving it at the cinema.
It's still nostalgic for me, just because I love Indiana Jones. If I wasn't an Indiana Jones
and I love
fan,
Indiana Jones as well. I got the hat.
Yeah.
I got my box set down there and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot I love about this film. There's a lot I love about it, but there's a lot I like about it, and it's entertaining enough for me to watch. But the more you think about it, the more you start to notice that doesn't work.
It's not a film that drags. I don't sit there thinking I can't wait for this to end. I can easily watch it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, we kind of thought it was rushed, to be honest.
Yeah.
We kind of went.
But I thought it went too quick.
Like I watched Raiders again recently. I watched them all again recently, and they all move along at a good pace. They're not too slow, but they're not too fast. Like, you watch them and you feel like you've gone on this adventure. And even so, you do feel kind of like you've gone on some sort of adventure in Kingdom of Crystal Skull. It doesn't feel like it's been an earned adventure. Like, you watch it and it's not... It doesn't have that same sense of wonder Raiders does. It doesn't have that same sense of horror Temple of Doom does. It doesn't have that same sense of excitement and emotional pull as Last Crusade. And so, I think, in conclusion, we both like it, but it is definitely the worst Indiana Jones movie.
I agree.
And... it should have been so much better. I don't know what the idea was with this film. I don't know why they decided to do it so many years later. They should have just left it as a trilogy. And even so, I remember being so excited to watch it and loving it when I was a kid, when I saw it for the first time. I think I was like 5 when I saw it for the first time. Even so, I absolutely adored it.
If I'm being honest, I think it's just one of those cases of what the hell happened. Basically, what
the hell happened?
Yeah, basically.
What the hell? Why are so many great people involved? Why does the VFX in the film look so obvious? And why does it look so fake? And why is he not good enough?
If I'm being honest, this isn't a joke. I'm not just saying this because I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones and I had high hopes for the film. Out of all the movies that I know of, Indiana Jones 4 is literally the biggest disappointment. It had out of all the films that had a good team, great director, good, Indiana Jones 4 for me has got to be the #1 shocker, basically. Like, it's got to be it's the biggest what went wrong film.
Yeah, so we like it, but it should have been a lot better. And so I'm going to give it, I think I'm going to give it about 6 out of 10. What are you going to give it?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, he's going a bit higher. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because, again, I do think it's entertaining on the surface. The more you think about it, though, the more problematic kind of is in terms of its plot. I also think it's very silly. It's the silliest of all the Indiana Jones movies, and even so, it does have some Spielberg touch on there. It should have been better directed, which I don't usually say of a Spielberg movie. But it's the truth when it comes to this film.
Well, this isn't a joke. It's as if Spielberg spent half the time that he had on the set sat down asleep or reading a book whilst it's as if he just went up to some random geezer. You know what, mate? Have a go, do some training.
Do you want to see if you can dial the scene? So why are you going to give it a 7 out of 10? Why are you giving it a bit higher than I am?
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 because I think it's a good film still. Nonetheless, I don't feel like giving a film that I call a good film just 6. And that's me personally. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. I love the first 3. I don't love this one, but I like it, so they can have a 7. The first 3, I'm giving Raiders 10, Temple of Doom 9 to 9.5, and Last Crusade
10.
11. I'm going. That could have 11.
It's going higher than me. 11 out of 10. It's going higher than I went 10 out of 10 on that one. The reason I gave it a 6 out of 10 as well, I still enjoy it, is because I give movies that I enjoy, but I have problems with 6 out of 10s. Like Kingsman of the Golden Circle, that's another example there. I like Kingsman of the Golden Circle, but I got some huge problems with it. I still find it enjoyable to watch, but when you think about it, it's got more problems. Which is also how I feel about this film. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The Indiana Jones from the longest name ever, one of the longest names of a film ever, period.
It's the longest. I think it's the longest name that I know of. I can't think of a longer one.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But in the end, it's not awful. I do think some people overstate how awful it is. It's not awful. I kind of like the fact that we got to see Indy as Professor again. I like how that grounds him. I also like that we got to see Karen Allen back as Marion. I think there's some good addition to the movie. I don't think Mutt is an awful character, although it should have been a better character. And in the end, the movie should have been better overall. But it wasn't. It's good, but not great. Which is a sad thing to say about Indiana Jones movie. But nevertheless, all in all, I'm going to say that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a 6 out of 10, and you're going to say...
I might actually drop down to a 6.5, not going to lie.
Okay, so I'm going to say, overall, it's a 6 out of 10 for me, and it's a 6.5
I feel like
out of
7
10
is
for
actually being slightly generous.
So yes, it's a 6 out of 10 for me, and a 6.5 out of 10.
I think we should meet halfway and say 6.25.
I'm trying to roll this off now. It's a 6 out of 10 from me, and it's a 6.5 out of 10 from him. Anyway guys, what do you think of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Please leave a comment down below and leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you for watching both of today, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more, both film and TVs, come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon.
See you guys soon, and make sure that you always remember to watch Indiana Jones.
See you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.